Yo, JD here, Limitless, and as you can see, back on F1 2021 here today. And in this video, we're going to be tackling the track that I call the hardest to learn on a Formula 1 game, even more than Monaco, in my opinion. This track has taken me so much time to get used to. And in this video, I'm going to be taking you through the process of my attempt to achieve the world record. So if you like watching many laps over and over again, because there's going to be a lot of raw laps here, then you're in for the right video. And you can see by the length of this one, it is going to be a long one. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the process. These weren't my very first laps, because I was on holiday for a period when this track was released. So I was about a week behind, and you can see that's my first taste of Portimao. And when I first came on this track, I did open lobbies only, so I didn't do any of the time trial. I just made 5-lap lobbies, 25% races, hosted them, and that was my way of getting used to the track. So these are my very first time trial laps here. You can see a first lap of a 20.9. But I already had about 2 to 3 days of playing online lobbies prior to this, so it definitely wasn't a stranger to me. But still, I always think it's really good to show of what the process and the journey is like in trying to achieve a world record, or just to achieve the fastest time you can possible, which I will be showing the setup at the end of this video, which I always do try and tailor a little bit more to be user-friendly in a race situation. That's just the way I quite like to drive. I definitely like to have stability on my side, whereas in qualifying from the outright pace, sometimes you need a very unsettled, unstable car in order to get the job done, which will definitely get you some overlap, but in the race it might be a lot more difficult to be consistent, which I think is the reason why you see a difference between drivers in qualifying and race in terms of their strengths. But right here now, as I always do with my world record attempts in the past, or when I'm trying to go for the fastest lap possible, I'm starting off with the default setup here. So this is completely stock. Not sure what preset this is, but we're in the 116s, which is actually quite good, because typically I gain, well, from last game I gained really about a second, and about one second to about 1.5 seconds on average between having a stock setup and my own custom setup. So if I could do a low 16 as the record is a 15.3 as it stands, then I would actually be very, very satisfied with that. And you can see the more laps we do, the more we're learning, and that's the reason why I just continue to do laps, even if I've invalidated it. Like right here, just invalidated here, but I'm actually going to continue, because I think this is a really, really important thing that a lot of people don't do. I think it's one of the main reasons why I developed a really good consistency with my driving, is that I just keep on going no matter what, because that's the best way to learn. Because if I just restarted the lap there, I got to that same point again, I might have been able to learn up until that point, but then after that it would have been a little bit more unknown to me on how to do the last sector. So I like to do the full thing, and lap after lap I try and focus on a corner from the previous lap that I could have done better, and I aim to improve that. So I just do small improvements at a time rather than just go completely gung-ho. And you can see again, I've learned from that you cannot brake on that curb. And you can see at the moment we're on a 16.9 with a default setup, which I actually think isn't too much of a bad effort at this stage. But we're going to stay aboard again, still with the default setup, testing out the track limits. As this time we actually avoid the curb. You can see we're getting a pretty good exit coming off this corner. So I'm just doing lap after lap to really just program it into my mind of what corners I can improve on, and that's the reason why I don't really restart laps. You can see we did a 16.4 there, although it was invalidated. So I had a pretty good amount of confidence that we could actually do a very bad low 16, and this time we did that very well, avoiding the curb, Last lap, we didn't do this apex particularly well, but this time we get it much, much better. And that's what I was thinking of at starting this lap, that in that first sector, the corners were wide previously, I'm going to make sure I get right this time. And it's just all about developing that muscle memory, just that repetition. It's like playing an instrument. Like when you're trying to learn a song on a piano or guitar, you practice the whole song. And if you keep doing it over and over again, it will eventually become second nature to you. So hopefully that's a fairly good way of explaining my process. Coming through to here now, this corner I would actually say is probably the hardest corner for me. That blind right-hander is very, very difficult, and you can see we're actually on a very, very nice lap. Need to hook the car on the inside of that curb, which we will discover a little bit more later on. Stay nice and tight, don't let it drift out too early here. And you can see we're well over 6 tenths up on that 16.9. And this is going to be a very, very good lap with completely stock setup. So no custom setup or anything at all. And we've done a 16.3, almost a 0.2. And yeah, I was pretty happy about that. It's given me a lot of confidence. So when I do decide to put on the setup, you can see less than a second off the world record, when typically you do gain about a second. You can see this is the stock setup, and you can see on the leaderboard it said that we weren't using a setup as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to load in a setup from the top 10. Ideally a wheel user, because the controller players seem to be very, very strong after the recent patch, and particularly around here. You've got people like Davizin, Key Mirror, Syra, 3 controller players in the top 4, which indicates that the controller is quite strong, and that's what I've been told. So I'm actually going to be using a Ron Haas setup, which a little glitch in this game is that it doesn't load in the first time. You have to actually do it twice for someone's setup to load in. You can see a little bit different, or quite a bit different from the stock setup I'm using. So I'm just going to trial this, but quite often there's some people's setups I do like at times, but most of the time I really have to tailor it to what I do. And that's something what I always encourage people as well, is that don't just rely on the top time trial setup. It might be quick for them, but doesn't mean it's going to work or be quick for you. You really can take an influence from those setups, so definitely take some ideas, but you really got to try and figure out what you need of your driving style, because the way you put your inputs into the car can be very, very different from other people. And that's what I really encourage, is people to have an open mind in terms of driving. Just because there's a good setup, like on the good leaderboard, you can see here, the first thing I noticed with this setup is that it was very, very oversteery in the low speed, so it would rotate very quickly. And you can see, like in here as well, back end really wanted to step out, which I think over time, if you keep using the setup, it's going to be very, very good in qualifying and in TT. But online, for me personally, that's not something you particularly want. I really want a good, stable base throughout the whole time. So I'm just going to give it a lap or a few laps with the setup, see how I feel. And you can see we are improving though. So we are going to be making about a 10.5 gain from our stock setup, despite having a couple of big mistakes. As we come across the line, it's a 16.1, so a good start so far. Now we're going to go to turn 1, and we're going to try and learn from our mistakes. So taking a bit more speed this time, invalidated it, but as I say, we're actually going to just go continue doing this much, much nicer and coming up through this first sector. Are we going to improve? No, we're not, but I was focusing on this next corner, on the exit of this left-hander. Had a bit of a moment on the last lap, so this time going to be a little bit more smoother, and you can see the reward is it's over 10th of a second. So it might not be as obvious as that when you're driving, but quite often just those little micro adjustments, by you learning from corners, by doing it lap after lap, that's where you make up the lap time. If you made up half a tenth per corner, then you're going to be gaining quite a lot of time if there's many, many corners on the track here. Doing this nice, and you can see by that delta how much time we've gained by just staying nice and tight to here. Let's see if we do it for this one. Not the best, but we're still getting a bit of time, so gaining another tenth, almost a tenth and a half again. So it just puts it into the back of my mind where to improve again for the very next lap, and we're going to go for another lap, and I think we're staying on board for maybe even a couple more laps after, so still being quite aggressive. This time, managing to stay on the track here, trying to go nice and tight to this curb and not getting a good middle part of the corner on that occasion, but we are still going to continue because I know there's a lot of parts in this lap, but this corner coming down into here, let's see what we can do on this exit, and you can see once again gaining about a tenth and gaining so much time back. Now into this one, the second right-hander, this turn 8. Let's see if we can do this better. Short shifting, double shifting to 5th gear. And you can see that's actually really helped stabilize the car. So having to short shift is definitely something I've taken from that corner. This time we did this one actually very, very well, gaining a couple hundredths of a second there. Let's see if we hit the curb on the inside here. Yes, we do, and you can see by the delta, we lost a little bit of time in the middle part of the corner. Do we stay tight to this one? Yes, we do. You can see we gained a lot on the entry, but not so much on the exit, but it is still going to be an improvement. And that's what I also encourage as well, when you're doing time trial or hot lapping, is to have those small goals. And then you'll find once you achieve that lap time, you will actually start to do that lap time a lot more consistent. Because you know you've actually already achieved the lap time, and it just gives you that little bit more confidence. So I spent a good few laps with that setup, and then I decided to change a few things there. So I always try and give it 3 to 5 laps before I have a good understanding with the setup that I'm using, and that's where I think the good drivers and the great drivers come in, is that they know what to change within the setup. Because I have many people ask me, is that how can I stop the car from sliding or get more stability? There's so many things that you can do. It all depends on what part of the corner as well, if it's on the entry, if it's during, if it's on the exit, if it's in high speed or low speed. There are just so many things that you can change, and that's where experience comes in, is that you know what is going to work from you. So this is something I will be offering in one-to-one coaching very, very soon. If you join my Discord, you will be one of the first people to do that. So if you join my YouTube membership, you will be getting a discount on that as well, and you'll be getting the early access to those details. But that's something I'm very, very excited to do, and I think hopefully a lot of people can benefit from it as well. Because when someone just asks you a generic question about how to get faster and stop sliding, there's just so much to it. Without being there and seeing it in person, it's very, very difficult to give a pretty good answer. But moving back to this, you can see we put on a different setup now and making that slight improvement. My goal was to get into the 15s, and we do get into the 15s in the first attempt, so that just shows me the tweak has worked quite nicely. Coming through it here, and we're getting a bit more speed, but taking a little bit too much curb on this one here. Definitely do not want to be hitting it inside of that corner. So we did a few more laps. I don't think we really improved that much. So lowering the on differential just make it a bit easier on the traction. Lowering the front toe just to get myself a bit better traction, so not as much high speed grip. Debating whether to put the rear anti-roll bar down to softer, again to aid with traction. But I think for now, I think we're pretty much going to be staying with this up unless I do make a change here. I'm thinking about it. Yes, I do. I actually put it down to 3.8. So the reason why I've done that is because I feel on the high speed, the back end was getting a little bit away from me. So I want the rear to be a little bit more planted. I'm going through it here, which might create a little bit more understeer, but the traction and confidence for me personally should be better. And you can already see straight away, I just have more confidence on the traction, and that's paying dividends in this first sector. So going into here, braking nice and hard. The car's not going to over rotate here, and you can see we actually get a very good exit. So I felt the setup change, that one tweak made a pretty big difference straight away. Coming through here, the back end is not sliding around, and you can see the time we are gaining. I always recommend to try and change maybe 1 to 2 things at the very most each time. We actually went pretty wide going into this corner, but on the exit gaining quite a lot of time, so almost half a tenth up. Throwing it into here because I know the back end's going to be a little bit more stable than it was before, and you can see the car is responding very, very well. Try to stay nice and tight to this, so get a good amount of the entry, then gaining a bit on the exit. It's going to be almost level, but we are going to make a slight improvement. But I did feel that setup change did make a very noticeable difference as we do a mid 0.9. So we're going to keep on staying on board again, because I always do 3 to 5 laps really with this setup. Managing to do that very, very nicely. Know I've got the stability here, so I'm going to be a bit more aggressive with the braking. Go for it, trying to go almost flat out as you can. And we are going to be about the same speed through the first sector as we were in the previous lap. Braking very, very deep in the score. Second, get missing the apex a little bit, but trying to get a good exit as we do with that extra traction now. Now into this corner. This is probably my favourite corner around this track. Into this one here, trying to kiss this inside up into 4th gear, and we get a pretty decent exit to be about half a tenth up going through into this corner. Do we miss the apex on this one? We do it much, much better than did on the previous lap. You can stick by the delta, but we lose it a little bit on the exit just because the angle was very, very tight. We actually run on out of bounds there. But we'll go continue again, going through into this last corner. That's what happens when you miss the apex to the possible corner. You can see how much time that actually cost us. That cost me a lot of time going through to there. So that's definitely something to put in the memory bank. But we are, despite that mistake, we were going to improve on that time. So again, if you improve and it's even invalidated, but you know that's an easy invalidation to fix, that really does give you that confidence. And you can see again, we're still continuing despite invalidating turn 1. Because I really want to see what the potential is if I just have a little bit of a cleaner lap. And now, as I said, I don't know if this is boring for people to watch, but for me, if I was able to have access to people doing stuff like this is really something that I feel would really, really help me. Being able to see a true perspective or a genuine perspective of what it's really like when someone does a time trial. Because although you see some of those lap times just are very, very daunting and intimidating, and it makes you think, oh, how can I achieve a lap time like that? I can promise you quite often the amount of time that has been put into it is a lot more than you really do think. But you can see here now, making a pretty nice improvement, staying nice and tight this time to the last corner. You can see how much time we have gained because of that, and we're going to be making about a 10th improvement, but it was invalidated. So I know again that the time potential really is there. So this is just keeps adding to my confidence all the time, and I think it's just very, very important that you try this method of just keep on going and going as much as you can. So going to turn 1, we're invalidating this one, but only just slightly. But yet again, I'm still going to continue like I did. You can see we're almost making a 10th improvement, just losing a little bit on this exit here. Now going to this left-hander. Let's see, do we hit the apex? No, we miss it. But do we get some good traction on the exit? We do get some not too bad traction. So still about 600s up in the lap. Staying nice and tight into here. Going down to 3rd gear, then short shifting into 4th gear. And we get a very, very good exit. So that really sets in stone of how I should really be taking this corner. Now going to here, we did this very, very nicely. You can see over 2 tenths up now, despite being validated. Going to here, do we kiss this curb? Yes, we do. Running a little bit wide here, so losing a bit of time. Needed to be a bit more tighter than that. Let's see how aggressive we are. So we are going to be about a 10.5 improvement, but still we lost quite a bit of time in that last sector as well. So although it might sound like a broken record, it really is about repetition and to just keep on going and going. Using a lot of a track this time, so that's something I started to do. Is using a lot more of a track going into turn 1, avoiding this curb and missing that apex very, very slightly, but just still trying to carry the speed. Try and keep it almost flat out through here. And we almost equaled what we did on the previous lap. So I know the potential is there now for the rest of the lap. Do we hit the apex this time? Yes, we do. A little bit better than we did previously. On the exit, we're slightly up than we were on the previous lap. Now, can we do the same going through into a little bit of a lift here, going a bit wide going into this corner, but we are still improving on the lap as well. So despite going that wide, we're still going to be on for quite a good time. Do we hit the apex here? We do that pretty well and just about staying on track, so about 10.5 up. Let's see what we can do. Do we hit the curb on this inside? Yes, we do. Much tighter this time. And you can see the time we have gained. Do we say tight here? But no, we got a little bit wide. But I think we're going to gain it back on the exit as we do. So even more time could be found there. But you can see now we're approaching the very low 0.9. And as I mentioned before, when you hit a lap time, and there's a lap time you've been struggling to hit, but once you do hit it, you'll find you'll start hitting it very, very consistently. So we're going to keep on going once again, hitting this apex much better this time. And you can see we are up on our previous lap. Now let's see what we do into here. This was much better for here. Do we stay nice and tight in this occasion? Yes, we do. And you can see the speed we have on the exit. Over a 10th up going through the tier. We've still some time to find in this last sector. So do we hit the apex here? A little dab, double stab at the steering wheel. You can see we've lost all that time. So that's why that corner is so hard. You could just lose so much time going through into here. But it's this last corner where I could have been tighter. And you can see the speed. You can see well over a 10th we've pretty much gained going through into that corner. So just those minor differences can add up to an absolutely huge amount. And this is actually a valid lap as well. So coming across the line, we get into our first 0.8. So slow and steady, but the progress is going to be made. And you can see on these next laps, we're just being very consistent. So another 0.8, and that's exactly what I was saying. As soon as I hit that 0.8, I just started to do it just a lot more consistently, and you can see taking more and more confidence going to this turn one. Do we do this nicely? We do this very well. So that's probably the best first sector that I've done so far. Getting a very good exit and about 300s up. So this is a very nice lap so far. What can we do going through into here, trying to hit this apex nice and tight, but we get a little bit squiggly on the exit, just slightly down on our fastest lap. But going through a section again, let's see what we can go and do going through it here. Go up into that 4th gear, try and get a good exit as we do. But in this last sector, remember this right-hander coming up, we definitely lost a lot of time coming through into here. So let's see what we can do. Do hit the apex, no double stab this time. Get a very good exit. You can see we gained over a 10th just through that corner alone. Do we hit the curb on this inside? Yes, we do. So that's a very nice line coming through into it, making sure we hit this corner nicely as we did on the previous lap. And this is a very good lap so far. You can see a 10th and a half up by just making that a little bit more cleaner going through that last sector. And once you break the mold in a lap time, then you will find, and now we're into the 0.6s. So now we're getting much closer to our target. But we kept on improving in this first sector even more, so kept on doing a 0.6 consistent now. I know this corner I could do much better, and then the exit here, you can see we're over half a 10th up. So through this repetition is working very nicely. Do we do this well? Going up into 4th gear, and we are just about surviving the car. The car really did want to get away as we were using so much speed going through into there. Do we do this nicely? Yes, we do, but then we invalidate and go out wide. But now we're going to move on to the fastest lap that I did achieve in this session. So going through into turn one, let's see what we can do. So going through into here, braking really just before the 50-meter board, going through it here and doing that really a 9 out of 10. So pretty solid through there, hitting this apex very nicely. Green on the apex. Let's see if we can make it through the exit, and we just about. So yeah, 300s up in this time. This is my best first sector I've done so far. Now coming through into this corner, do we hit the apex? Yes, we do. Not running on this exit curb. I don't like to do it, and you can see we're 800s up on this time. So this is a very good lap so far. Really attacking this as much as we can, kissing this apex up into 4th gear, but a little bit too tight. You can see we're over a 10th up, but we've lost out on the exit, but still about 800s up now. But into this corner, we really do this badly, and you can see we've lost over a 10th going through into that corner. So I'm doing everything to make it up going through into here now, staying nice and tight. Let's see if we can do this last corner well as well. So staying really tight here. This was a very good penultimate corner, but we lost that 10th of a second in that blind right-hander. Stay nice and tight to minimize the distance off the track, and coming across the line, it's going to be a 15.656. In the end, I was actually quite happy with that, and that was enough for P6 on the leaderboard. I believe Ron Hart is the fastest wheel user of a 0.4, and I think you can see by my lap time that definitely a 5 or even a high 4 on a very perfect lap would be able to do that. But you can see beating other people like Shadow and other very good wheel users there. So overall, for someone who's not particularly strong at time trial, I was quite happy about it. And of course, the steps are definitely tailored a little bit more towards the race. So 710 wings, so a little bit more downforce than most people. 8056, this is really my go-to. Front camber minus 2.8, all the way for the rear camber for that rotation. 163727. Again, quite typical of me, but with the high downforce, this works very well. 156 and max tire pressures. So I really hope that has given you a true perspective on what it really takes to try and go for the ultimate fastest lap. I really hope you found that useful. If you are interested in one-to-one coaching or group coaching, make sure you join my YouTube membership by clicking the join button, and you will be getting access to that very, very soon. Thank you so much for the support on the channel. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you very, very soon. Peace.